Everyone wants to get rich fast, but the faster you chase, the further it runs. Sit with that for a moment, not as a slogan, but as a mirror. What does it show you about the last time you felt a sudden jolt of excitement over an opportunity? Maybe you saw a friend post an overnight win, an influencer break down a can't-miss play, or a chart that looked like a rocket pointed straight at your dreams. The body reacts before the mind does. There's a flutter in the chest, a soft buzz of urgency in the fingertips, a whisper that says, "Move now, or miss it forever." That whisper can be a teacher if you let it, because it reveals how our brains are wired to love speed, certainty, and the feeling of being the exception. But wealth, durable wealth, doesn't usually respond to speed the way we expect. When you run at it, it tends to step back. When you slow down and become the sort of person and system that money trusts, it tends to walk toward you. Consider why speed is so seductive. Deep in the brain, dopamine doesn't deliver happiness. It tags a target with salience. It makes something glow. The glow is useful when the target is truly valuable and under your influence, like learning a rare skill, finishing a product, or showing up for customers. The glow is dangerous when the target is a marketed fantasy, like winning without a system, skipping the boring middle, or unlocking abundance through an incantation of secrets. The modern world is engineered to amplify that glow. Platforms show you improbable outcomes on repeat until improbable looks normal. You don't see the full distribution, you see the highlight reel. Survivorship bias, edited timelines, and omission of failed attempts create an illusion of speed as standard. Your brain compares your messy reality to their polished endpoint and calls the gap proof that you're late. You're not late. You're simply inside an honest timeline. The illusion of getting rich quick has two core pillars: a speed illusion and a control illusion. The speed illusion says that because someone appeared to ascend in months, your ascent should follow the same arc. The control illusion says that if you follow a few exact steps, you can compress reality on demand. Both illusions are emotionally comforting because they turn uncertainty into a promise. But the world is a complex system. Outcomes are a mix of skill, timing, randomness, and structure. Compressing uncertainty into a promise is psychologically tidy and strategically fragile. You can be talented and still need time. You can be prepared and still face randomness. You can be diligent and still need compounding to do its slow, quiet work. This is not pessimism. It's risk literacy. It's a decision to live in reality instead of a story. Reality begins with math and behavior. Wealth has three moving parts: what flows in, what you keep, and how well it survives. What flows in is your engine: skills that the market values, assets that produce cash, systems that convert attention into revenue. What you keep is your funnel: spending less than you earn, avoiding lifestyle creep that outruns income, placing the surplus into assets with sensible risk and understandable mechanics. Survival is your armor: buffer against volatility, diversification that protects against single points of failure, and habits that keep you from turning a temporary drawdown into a permanent loss. The get-rich-quick mindset tries to replace the engine with a slingshot, the funnel with hope, and the armor with denial. A better approach is to accept that compounding is front-loaded, with boredom. The curve looks flat for a while. You feel silly. Nobody applauds. Then it inflects. If you quit before the inflection, you donate your future to someone with more patience. Patience is not passivity. Slow is not still. The slow path is a rhythm. Build, measure, learn, protect. If you run a small business, that rhythm looks like tracking customer acquisition costs, margin by product, time to value for a new client, and the payback period on your marketing. It looks like choosing to fix bottlenecks instead of chasing novelty, like rewriting a page that confuses buyers instead of launching a fourth offer that dilutes focus. If you invest, the rhythm looks like defining risk per position, setting maximum drawdown thresholds, placing stop losses that you honor even when it hurts, and reviewing every month what your edge truly is, not the edge you want, the edge your data shows. If you're building a career, the rhythm looks like identifying a stack of skills: communication, analysis, domain depth, delivery reliability, and moving each one a notch upward every quarter, while cultivating a professional reputation for consistency. None of that makes for flashy headlines. All of it changes the slope of your life. Why don't we do these sensible things more consistently? Because our identities get hijacked by stories about speed. I'm the kind of person who spots opportunities early. I'm the exception. I move fast. These identities feel powerful and become brittle. When reality demands patience, a brittle identity demands action. So you jump. Not because the move is good, but because sitting still would threaten who you think you are. A healthier identity is smaller and sturdier. I am the kind of person who learns, tests, protects my downside, and shows up. It's not as cinematic, but it's robust. It bends when conditions change. It lets evidence, not ego, choose the next step. Over time, it outperforms because it survives. Let's talk about the emotional engine under quick schemes. Urgency. Urgency narrows your time horizon. Narrow time horizons magnify risk because you start optimizing for immediate relief. You want the win now to quiet the discomfort of being behind, being ordinary, being uncertain. The mind reaches for anything that promises to end discomfort at once. But comfort acquired through a fragile bet is not relief. It's a loan from the future at predatory interest. The moment the wind changes, you owe. If you've ever felt that sick, sinking feeling of being overextended, too much money at risk, too much reputation attached to an unproven thing, too much hope tethered to a single outcome, you know the cost of urgency. Compare that with the quiet relief of having buffers. Cash buffers, skill buffers, reputation buffers, multiple small engines of income, and a habit of never betting your identity on a single roll. Relief that comes from structure is durable. Relief that comes from a spike is a trap. Gambling teaches us how subtle the trap can be. Near misses, the spin that almost lands on your number, the trade that almost hits your target, release many of the same chemicals as wins. They feel like proof that your method works. They are often just noise. Noise is seductive because it builds a story without building signal. You get a sequence of experiences that feel like insight, and you start to escalate. This is how people turn a small test into, my whole net worth is in this now. Not because they're reckless by nature, but because escalation is how the brain tries to turn tension into resolution. The antidote is pre-commitment. Rules written when you are calm that survive when you are excited. Risk per bet. Maximum exposure. Conditions that must be present before action. Conditions that force you out when they vanish. Write the rules. Honor them. When you don't, the world will educate you at full price. Leverage multiplies both wisdom and folly. Used carefully, with resilient cash flow, clear scenarios, and true margins of safety, leverage can accelerate a sturdy plan. Used to turn a fragile hope into a sure thing, leverage becomes a fuse. The psychology is straightforward. Leverage sells you a story about magnifying your cleverness, but it actually magnifies your blind spots too. If you use leverage before you have evidence that your system survives storms, you are making a storm inevitable. A practical rule. Only lever against something you control, understand, and can service through bad seasons. Never lever against your need to be special. If your reason for taking more risk is to fix a feeling rather than to serve a plan, pause. The feeling won't be fixed by a bigger bet. It will be fixed by better habits and a longer runway. Hedonic adaptation complicates everything. You imagine a sudden leap in money will permanently lift your mood. Often it simply raises your baseline. Within months, the extraordinary becomes normal. The peak fades into the background. The mind asks, what's next? If you built your life around spikes, you'll chase the next spike, even if it endangers what you already have. If you built your life around systems, you'll channel the surplus into resilience and freedom. That's the quiet financial superpower. Treating each incremental win not as a reason to inflate lifestyle, but as a reason to deepen stability. The difference between someone who keeps their wealth and someone who spins out is usually not intelligence. It's the relationship with baseline. One inflates it by default. The other raises it deliberately, slower than income, and keeps a gap that buys optionality. Let's make this concrete with a slow mental exercise. Picture two paths. On the fast path, you chase 5 hot plays over a year. You spend time learning the lingo of each, enter late on 3, exit early on 1, and ride one all the way up and halfway down. Your attention is split. Your sleep is light. Your relationships feel backgrounded. And your spreadsheet looks like a roller coaster that ends about where it started. On the slow path, you choose one engine to build, perhaps a service you can deliver reliably, a product you can improve each month, or a content system that attracts a defined audience. You measure the boring metrics: inquiries, conversion, fulfillment cycle time, refunds, and customer lifetime value. You remove friction points, rewrite unhelpful copy, map your buyer's questions, and make a simple lead magnet that answers them generously. You allocate a portion of profit into a calm portfolio you understand. 12 months later, the fast path left you with adrenaline memories and little structure. The slow path left you with a machine. Machines keep working when your mood dips. Machines survive your off days. Machines compound. But what if you missed something big while you were building the machine? You probably did, if something big means a sudden spike you didn't ride. The question is whether that spike was yours to catch without breaking your larger plan. Opportunity cost matters, but so does destruction cost. A mature builder measures both. If taking a bet would raise your destruction risk more than your opportunity, you let it pass. This is where temperament becomes strategy. You decide in advance what kinds of opportunities belong to you. You define my game and not my game. That definition makes it easier to say no without feeling small. Every no is a yes to continuity of focus, relationships, health, and progress. The market will offer endless ways to fracture those. A boundary is a strategy. Environments drive behavior more than we admit. If you live in feeds, rooms, and groups that celebrate speed and spectacle, you'll absorb those values and wonder why patience feels like failure. Curate what you consume. Follow people who publish numbers, not just narratives, builders who share inputs, constraints, and postmortems, not only the victory lap. Spend time with craftspeople who talk like farmers. Seasons, soil, pests, harvest, storage. You will notice their language is slow and precise. They think in terms of cycles, not eruptions. That language will calm your nervous system and set your expectations on a human timeline. Your nervous system, not your intellect, is often deciding how you invest. Calm it, and your decisions change. If you need a simple daily practice to rewire your relationship with wealth, here's one you can perform quietly. Each evening, write 3 lines. First line: one action that produced value, something you made, solved, sent, or improved. Second line: one small protection you installed, a buffer you added, a risk you reduced, a boundary you honored. Third line: one lesson from evidence, a metric, a response from a customer, a personal signal about your energy. This 3-line ritual trains your attention on engines, armor, and learning. Over weeks, you'll notice your appetite for spectacle fading and your appetite for structure growing. You will have less interest in news you cannot use, and more interest in the next test you can run. Identity and community can either fuel or free you from the quick illusion. If your circle bonds over the next big thing, you'll chase to belong. If your circle bonds over craftsmanship, patience, and iteration, you'll build to belong. Choose carefully. Belonging is a human need that often masquerades as financial urgency. We think we're chasing wealth. Sometimes we're chasing approval. Wealth built to buy approval rarely buys peace. Approval is rented, and the rent is due whenever you stop performing. Peace comes from aligning your money behavior with your values: reliability, fairness, curiosity, generosity, and restraint. Those values compound too. People feel them. Trust grows. Opportunities arrive that require no theatrics. Rates improve because risk declines. Your name carries weight, not because you shouted, but because you quietly kept promises. Let's explore the exception myth. Yes, exceptions exist. Rare talents, rare timings, rare windfalls. But building your life on being the exception creates constant friction with reality. You will either resent reality for not conforming, or you will pretend it did and take bigger risks to make the story true. A more peaceful posture is this: assume you are not the exception, and choose strategies that work for non-exceptional people who behave exceptionally well over time. That means you exploit simple, repeatable advantages. Show up more reliably than others. Communicate more clearly than others. Price more sanely than others. Manage cash more carefully than others. And learn from small experiments faster than others. These are not glamorous advantages. They are powerful. In a noisy world, consistency is a brutally strong edge. Now zoom closer to the personal level. Your week, your day, your next hour. Wealth gradients are built inside calendars. If your calendar is a museum of distractions, your net worth will reflect it eventually. Design the week to privilege your engine. Put the work that generates value in the slots where you have your best energy, not your leftover energy. Schedule a fixed review block where you look at reality, income, expenses, pipeline, conversions, cash runway. No shame, no drama, just numbers. Numbers end arguments between your mood and your plan. Decide in advance what minimum viable progress looks like for the day. 1 pitch sent, 1 page written, 1 client followed up, 1 process documented, and defend that streak. Streaks build identity. Identity drives behavior. Behavior bends outcomes. Consider the quiet power of anti-goals, the things you will not do. I will not take on projects where the payer's incentives are misaligned with mine. I will not commit more than 10% of liquid assets to any single speculative play. I will not say yes to something that confuses the customer journey I've already built. Anti-goals reduce regret. Reduced regret increases steadiness. Steadiness increases compounding. This is not about being timid, it's about being precise. Precision is what people call luck after the fact. You decided where you would not bleed, and so you had strength when it mattered. There's another layer: second-order effects. Quick wins often have expensive second-order costs, maintenance you didn't expect, obligations you can't meet, reputational risk you didn't price. Slow wins tend to have favorable second-order effects: referrals, renewal, word of mouth, and deepening skill. When you evaluate an opportunity, ask not only what happens if it works, but what does it obligate me to? Who does it make me become? And what systems will it force me to build or break? Some money is noisy. It brings drama with it. Some money is quiet. It stacks without announcing itself. Favor quiet money. Quiet money comes from clean value. A fair trade between what you deliver and what people pay, delivered through a system that doesn't exhaust you or your team. If all of this feels sober, even conservative, remember the aim is not to banish ambition. It's to keep it alive long enough to bear fruit. Sustainable ambition moves like a tide, not a firework. It expands your capacity slowly, broadens your moat gradually, and raises your baseline in a way your nervous system can afford. When you feel envy toward the firework, notice that envy and translate it into admiration for something you can emulate sustainably: their craft, their storytelling, their shipping cadence, their audience empathy. Envy wants you to copy outcomes. Admiration invites you to copy behaviors. Behaviors are portable. Outcomes are path-dependent. Let's return to the body for a moment. Notice the tells: the quickened breath when you scroll, the restlessness when you hear a friend's win, the sudden compulsion to open a brokerage app or buy a course at midnight. The body is voting for speed. Thank it for wanting you to be safe and special. Then breathe. Ask a gentle question. What problem in my life is this opportunity promising to solve? If the answer is, I don't want to be ordinary, choose a better problem. If the answer is, I want more freedom, choose levers that actually buy time: recurring revenue, lower fixed costs, diversified income, and less debt. If the answer is, I hate my current work, design an exit through skill building and bridge projects, not a leap into a gap hoping a gust of luck will carry you across. Courage without a bridge is a fall with good intentions. Protect your attention like it's an asset on your balance sheet. Because it is. Attention fuels learning, makes customers feel seen, turns feedback into improvements, and allows compounding to happen. Hijacked attention makes you a customer of other people's plans. Every distracting app on your phone is a toll booth on the highway of your future. Pay fewer tolls. Put your phone in another room for the first 90 minutes of deep work. Turn off non-essential notifications. Replace doom scroll with design scroll. 10 minutes consuming only material that teaches you how to build your engine better. Small acts like this are leverage of the sober kind. They multiply quality hours. Quality hours are the currency of real change. We should talk about reputation, because it's the original compounding asset. When people learn that you keep promises, you stop paying the friction tax that erodes most opportunities. Deals close faster. Referrals happen with less effort. Partners offer better terms. Customers forgive honest mistakes. Reputation lets you compound through human trust, which is faster than any algorithm and more resilient than any trend. The quickest way to burn reputation is to prioritize extraction over relationship, to chase the big score at the cost of the next 10 years of goodwill. The quickest way to grow reputation is to be boringly reliable. Reliability does not trend on social media. It trends in balance sheets. What about bold moves? Aren't they necessary? Yes, but bold doesn't have to mean reckless. Bold can mean being the first in your circle to choose patience in public, to publish real numbers, to admit a mistake, to sunset a profitable but misaligned product, to keep prices fair when you could gouge, to invest in customer support when it doesn't generate immediate revenue, or to decline an investor whose money would distort your mission. These are bold in a quieter register. They set you up for a future where you can make louder bets from a position of strength. Semi-bold beats all in when you are still discovering your edge. Now, think of luck. Luck is not a plan, but it can be invited. You invite luck by increasing your surface area to it, shipping frequently, being findable, learning in public, and building relationships without immediate asks. You also invite luck by surviving long enough to be present when the winds shift in your favor. The ocean doesn't care about your schedule. It cares that your boat is seaworthy. Seaworthy boats are balanced. Some ballast in safety. Some sail in upside. The get-rich-quick illusion wants all sail. It looks thrilling leaving the harbor. It looks different during a squall. Keep enough ballast that you're still upright when the storm passes and the wind returns. There will be moments when a true asymmetry appears, an opportunity where the downside is small and knowable, and the upside is meaningfully larger. Those are wonderful. You will only be able to tell them apart from illusions if you have practice saying no to noise. A habit of discipline makes generosity toward genuine opportunity possible. Without discipline, every shiny thing looks like destiny. With discipline, most shiny things look like what they are: mirror fragments that scatter light without substance. If you've lost money to the quick illusion before, treat that loss as tuition. Get the lesson you paid for. What did your behavior look like right before the loss? What signals did you ignore? Which rule would have saved you if it had existed? Write that rule now. Install it. The best apology to your future self is a new constraint that makes the old mistake harder to repeat. This is how regret becomes a tool instead of a weight. You can move differently tomorrow because you learned something honest today. Imagine the version of you 12 months ahead who chose the slow strength instead of the fast glow. They wake up in a quieter room. They know what to do today, not because a guru told them, but because last week's metrics whispered the next smallest lever. They have 3 engines, one that pays the bills reliably, one that grows with each iteration, and one that may become remarkable, but doesn't demand that from them yet. They spend less time managing anxiety and more time practicing craft. They have options, not infinite, but enough to choose without panic. Their friends know them as steady, not flashy. Their customers know them as fair. Their family knows them as present. And strangely, opportunities knock more often now. Not because they chased faster, but because they became easier to trust. This is the paradox at the heart of real wealth building. When you stop chasing, you start attracting. Not because of magic, but because you replaced heat with light. You traded urgency for clarity, spectacle for systems, and fantasy for feedback. You learned to welcome boredom as the front door to compounding. You kept risk in a box it could not escape. You measured what mattered, and you let time do what only time can do. In that world, fast occasionally happens to you, but it stops being your identity. Your identity becomes the person who builds things that work and lasts long enough to enjoy them. So when the next pitch arrives, because it will, let the first sensation pass through you. Feel the flutter, thank it, breathe, and ask better questions. What is the engine? Where does cash actually flow? Who pays? Why do they pay? And what makes them stay? What moats protect this when copycats arrive? What are the second-order costs in attention, energy, and reputation? What is the worst case? And can I absorb it without hiding from my own bank statements or my own loved ones? What rule will I write now to govern this? And what evidence would cause me to exit regardless of mood? If the answers are fog, you are not analyzing, you're wishing. Wish in poetry. Invest in prose. Everyone wants to get rich fast, but the faster you chase, the further it runs. Let that line become a filter. Opportunities that require you to sprint past your rules aren't opportunities. They're rehearsals for regret. Opportunities that fit inside your rules, your risk limits, your values, your bandwidth, may not look like fireworks, but they light a path you can actually walk. Walk it. Let streaks replace spikes. Let quiet replace noise. Let systems replace stunts. One day, someone will call your results overnight. You will smile, because you'll remember the thousands of slow, ordinary minutes that made it inevitable.